All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're breaking down a really strange and honestly terrifying philosophical system. The source material gives us this complete, self-contained worldview where your very existence, well, it's seen as a cosmic error that needs correcting.
And this is where it all kicks off. This quote comes from a being called the all-consuming Ma, and it just immediately sets this chilling tone, doesn't it? This isn't about salvation, it's about assimilation. The whole process is framed as this glorious, even necessary act of purging a fundamental flaw from the universe.
So that brings us to our first section, a bug in the system. Why is your individuality, your consciousness, seen as a mistake? Well, the whole philosophy is built on this idea of a perfect absolute system they call the grand architecture. And you're the corruption.
To really get this, we have to talk about a key term, lynch. Now, this isn't life force in a good way, like something to be cherished. No. It's just spiritual energy, raw fuel. So right from the get-go, the relationship between you and the divine is set up as one of a resource and a consumer. You literally exist to be metabolized.
This is where it gets really wild, because look at how this system just completely inverts our values. The things we hold dear, our ability to reason, our memories of love, they get totally reframed. They aren't treasures, they're fleeting errors. They're just bugs in the cosmic code that mess up the perfect, silent whole. And what do you do with bugs? You purge them.
Okay, so let's move on and see how this all gets justified. That brings us to Section 2, the Gospel of the Belly. This is the philosophy, the theology that underpins this whole process of correction. And yeah, it is a theology based entirely on predation. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The universe isn't some wonderful gift for life to flourish in. Nope, it's a trap, and a perfectly designed one at that. The source material says that things like scarcity and predation are literally hard-coded into the laws of physics to make sure suffering and consumption are constant, required inputs for the system to even work.
So this twisted gospel really boils down to 4 key ideas. 1, the universe is a trap. 2, your only purpose is to be fuel. 3, the divine being actually evolves by eating you. And 4, the absolute highest spiritual purpose you could ever hope to achieve is your own complete and total annihilation. It's a closed loop, and you're the main course.
So that brings us to Section 3, the unholy redemption. We've talked about the why, so now let's get into the how. The source gives us a very systematic, step-by-step process for taking apart a soul, and it's framed as this kind of seeker's journey toward a really messed up version of salvation. So, the big question is, how do you actually correct a bug, like individuality? Well, the process needs a couple of key players, 2 divine facilitators, whose whole job is to guide the poor seeker toward their own unmaking.
First up, you've got the Pale Redeemer. The source calls him the press. He basically preys on the pain that comes with being an individual and offers you this false cure. His job is to kick off the physical deconstruction, using something called the crown of roses to literally bind your heart and mark you for assimilation.
And then you have his partner in crime, the Whispering Seraph, who is basically the spirit of gaslighting. Just as the seeker's identity starts to crack, the Seraph swoops in to shut down any internal resistance. He whispers in your ear that the agony you're feeling is actually enlightenment, convincing you that your own destruction is not only your choice, but a divine revelation.
And this whole nightmare process is called the furnace of rebirth. Let's walk through it. It starts when the seeker, just desperate for any kind of relief, accepts that false cure. That's the opening the crown needs to latch onto their heart. Then, as their identity starts to crumble, the Seraph's whisper convinces them it's a good thing. The end result isn't rebirth at all. It's total recreation. You're stripped of everything that made you you and turned into a mindless copy, just data for the system.
So let's just try to picture this for a second. At the start of this transformation, your core identity, your memories, your love, it's still there. That's the bug that the system is targeting.
But as the process kicks in, that identity starts to glitch. It fractures, your reason breaks down, your memories get corrupted. This is the deconstruction happening in real time. It's the sound of a unique soul being ground down into something uniform and gray.
And that's it. This is the final result. The conversion is complete. A unique soul, with all its beautiful, messy complexity, has been successfully processed. It's not a person anymore. It's just raw, consumable data for that all-consuming mall.
So what's the end game here? What is the whole point of this? Section 4 lays out the final state, which is called the mindless perfect whole. This is the ultimate goal, a universe without diverse beings, a universe of silent, perfect uniformity.
And this really gives us a stark contrast, doesn't it? The flawed beginning is this vibrant, colorful world, a library full of countless different stories. But the perfected end? A single, monolithic reality. The entire library of humanity gets bulldozed and replaced with one massive blank stone. Every story is erased for one silent, unquestionable truth.
And this is the peace that's promised. Sure, it's an eternal existence, but you're a non-sentient brick in a silent, empty city. You're free from the pain of thinking and loving because you don't exist anymore. It's the peace of total annihilation. So let's wrap this up. Section 5 boils this entire, complicated philosophy down to one single, powerful metaphor that the source material gives us: coal for the furnace.
The sources draw this incredibly clear line. You see, if traditional theology is like a banquet where a creator hosts a feast for his guests, this theology is a furnace. And in this system, the creator isn't a loving father. It's an insatiable machine that looks at its guests and only sees coal for the fire. The guests are the feast.
And this is the absolute kicker. The authority of this entire system is justified purely by its own hunger. Its need to consume is the only law that matters. And in its twisted logic, it saves the coal from the cold, lonely darkness of individuality by burning it to uniform ash to fuel its own endless fire.
Which leaves us with this final, chilling question to think about. If you accept the horrifying but internally consistent logic of this system, if the entire universe is designed for consumption, then is the act of becoming fuel the only real purpose a person can ever find?